here I am again. Today we will talk about you as a being. Many think we are just a body with nothing that goes on after we die. Others believe we are more. There will be many opinions about this topic, but here in Space Academy, we only have one, and that is, of course we are more, so much more. How so, and how do we know? Well, we will go into it in this video. This is one of the most important subjects on which many future concepts will be based. So, let's begin. If you ask anyone whether they think they are only a body or something more, they will probably answer according to their religious or spiritual background, or based on the scientific understanding of the subject. In the first case, it would be yes, we are more than a body, and there is some kind of continuity after death. The second one would explain it away in terms of chemical and electric neuronal processes that, when ceased, cease our existence as well. Terrestrial science, with its so-called scientific method, supposedly appeared on Earth a few hundred years ago, as a stance against the religions of the times, and, in consequence, it disregarded everything that had to do with spiritual phenomena in favor of the materialistic approach with which to study life. Any more subtle realities were totally ruled out. There are many great things about science. In fact, we will go into many concepts related to science and technology in the future. This is not about dismissing science, or choosing this or that. However, it must be stated that the scientific method, how it functions on Earth, and however reliable it may be to describe the physical world, cannot be depended on when presented with something that will not be observable by it, and a lot is still out of its reach, especially when it comes to consciousness and mind. The science didn't know anything about simple electricity just a few hundred years ago, so it has no right to condition the population to believe that something exists or not just when it can be proven by it. The truth is, if we limit ourselves only to what the current state of our science can prove with its material means, we will leave out of our reality the big part of the larger whole that includes very real, non-material aspects, limiting with it our potential, personally and as a race. What transcends the material realm, thousands of verifiable cases of near-death and out-of-body experiences, psychic and paranormal phenomena studied worldwide, cannot be proven with science based on material methods, or else it will be reduced to the material explanations with which it is studied, reducing with it who we are as beings, which, yet again, is what the controllers of the Earth really want, for reasons that we will develop in future videos. The science of the Earth is a coral for the human mind, so that people cannot develop anything that is not approved by the controllers. With that being said, science, as it is on Earth, is not the best place to rely on for answers in these deeper areas. There are too many concepts it cannot handle, at least not officially. Okay, so what are we then, if not just the body and chemical processes? Are we a soul, as most religions teach? Energy? Mind? Let's get to it then. It is easy for many to fall into thinking they are just their body when the whole physical experience points to it. They feel tired when it gets tired, in pain when it feels pain. They give it vitamins, they cause reactions that make them feel a certain way, so obviously they are their body. The experience of living in a material world is very compelling. So it is very easy to think only in terms of hard matter and the laws of nature and of physics that govern it, and nothing else. On top of it, apart from your body itself trying to convince you there is nothing else, most people on Earth don't have any deep spiritual realizations, so the controllers weaponize this general population's ignorance about all things spiritual, relegating all that either to institutionalized religions or the realms of fantasy and wishful thinking. In Space Academy, we break through the terrestrial scientific limitations by understanding the human being not only as his or her body, but most importantly, as consciousness. This is one of the core concepts on which many future ones will be based, so please pay attention. The essence of who you are is your consciousness, soul. And that consciousness, the self-awareness of who you are, is the part that transcends space and time, transcends death. But what exactly is soul and consciousness? Let's start by stating that the word soul has religious connotations, and it is not my intention. It is simply the closest word after consciousness that can encapsulate the concept. A soul, who you are deep inside, is a fractal of source, being the source itself, a point of consciousness, a presence. And what is source? Let's say for now, it is the wholeness of the reality, absolute oneness of all things of which we are all intrinsically part of, and which includes everything that exists. You, as a soul, are a singular awareness point, holographic fragment of the source, not as a separate piece of it, but being the source itself. Holographic meaning the exact reflection and representation of all the qualities of the source, conserving all its creative qualities, being a conscious fractal of it at the same time, an aware point of attention within the source, a drop within the ocean, and the ocean itself, eternal. Now, pay attention to this next concept. Remember we talked about perception agreements between two or more people as in something that creates their reality? And more importantly, their attachments to these ideas? Well, this concept of individual ideas and attachments also relates to the subject of a soul. Let me explain. A soul, as explained above, your conscious self, is a holographic fragment of source itself, yes? You are source experiencing itself through the individual point of attention, and that point of attention is what you perceive as you. But what does this point of attention consist of, so to speak? Ideas, feelings, and your attachments to them. A soul is not an object. It is not even an energy, strictly speaking. It is a group of concepts, attachments, and ideas that a larger consciousness holds dear. It is a range from one point to another within an infinite source of consciousness. We are a group of ideas and concepts in God's mind, and to which God has grown attachments to, using the word God in a rhetorical manner, with no religious intent or meaning. Some might argue that the soul is something beyond ideas, pure presence, and that is the real you. This is also true, and you can experience this state of mind in deep meditation, for example. That would be the more expanded layer of you, so to speak, integrating more of the whole. However, as long as we are in some identity state, especially when in the physicality, we will hold perceptions, source holding ideas within itself. And that is you. You are that idea within the source. Am I trying to say that the soul, full of perceptions and awareness, is the part that transcends your body? Transcends death? Yes. When you die, your awareness remains, but not only as the pure consciousness with nothing inscribed into it, but you actually take many of your ideas with you, conscious and unconscious, as bundles of attachments within the larger consciousness field that you also are. That's why people from very young age develop preferences, interests, and talents. It is something they carried on to this life from previous experiences as the soul. Have you ever wondered why two children in the same family display different characteristics despite being raised in exactly same environment? It's because who they are deep inside, their soul, is not something they begin with at birth, but it's carried over from before, and they continue to build that soul forward, but with the perceptions already imbued onto it and the new ones acquired as they go. And that's why your perceptions matter. They continue to build not only your present life, but your future as well. So watch what you think and believe, and learn to let go. How are you doing so far? Can you handle the idea of being a fractal of something larger and being that something larger at the same time and with all its creative powers? Well, that is exactly who you are, my friend. And your body is simply a mechanism through which to have the experience in the material world. Also part of Source, of course. On the topic of the body, and this is important, understanding you are the consciousness and not your body does not mean dismissing it or the material experience. I remember my brother once said, all those spiritual people just talk about soul stuff, that's boring. Well, in my case, at least, that couldn't be farther from the truth. That's not what spirituality means for us in Space Academy, although It could, of course, mean anything you want individually. For me, knowing I am more than the body allows me greater appreciation for all things physical, as I know I am giving myself, a point of attention of source, the experiences it seeks. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. It's like I am source looking at itself and its own experiences through my self-awareness, enjoying my own creation, building new ones. In fact, being more than the body doesn't really mean that you are not your body. It only means you are not only your body. But of course, my body is me since I'm here, functioning through it. It is a unity, connected. All over spiritual communities, they are pushing the concept that you are not a body, that you have a body. And that is only partially accurate, because your body is a physical manifestation and expression of all what defines you in a more expanded way. It is the materialization of all the concepts that you hold attachments to in the side of the ether or on the spirit side. Same thing. So, accept yourself as both soul and body, not as opposites, but as part of the same.
Moving on, let's look at the function the body plays in relation to consciousness. It allows the experience in the material realm, yes, but as it does that, it filters a lot of what the consciousness can experience when not operating through the body. With that, giving the illusion there is nothing more beyond what the body itself can observe. It's just the way it is designed, and how it is for most people. Although what it filters is not always thorough. Things from the so-called other side do leak sometimes. And that's when you get all kinds of paranormal experiences. Generally, though, not much peeks through. But that is not because it is not there, but because the body works as a filter for soul's perception, to only experience living within a narrow bandwidth of frequencies that are perceived as the so-called material world. To keep its attention there, to provide experience. But you are a soul, and what you perceive as yourself in a body is only the translation into the so-called material world that biology gives. Your brain, nervous system, and DNA are the translators into the material world. Everything you truly are, your memory, is not in your body. Wow! Body, brain, and DNA as a perception filter and translator for the soul. So the brain does have something to do with consciousness after all. Yes, but as a sort of decoder for it, so to speak. The signal, or the soul, enters and is decoded by the brain as a very high-frequency signal from the ether side. So you are experiencing the so-called material world through your body, not being really there, just receiving through there. Much as when a drone is used to go into faraway places. and its operator sees through the cameras of the drone and manipulates objects using the drone's mechanical arm and hand. All the operator's attention may be there with the drone, but the subject is not in the drone. The same goes for memory, by the way, which is not stored in the brain. There are parts of the brain that control specific functions. For example, specialized areas for sensory perception, speech centers, and so on. But in the case of memory, there are none, as the entire brain works as the translator. Memory is very much linked with who we are and with the formation of our self, and it is not found inside the brain. It is in the etheric field, in the spirit world. This also applies to psychic phenomena and abilities, very real, and which world intelligence agencies, for example, use but hide from the public. They do not reside in the brain either, nor do they reside in a gene. They come from your spiritual essence, higher self. They are not physical.
Wow, we touched on many deep points today. And thank you for being still here. Believe me, it's so expanding to learn all this. Memory not in the brain? Ether? What is ether? So many topics to go through in the future. About the memory not being in the brain, this also explains why many people have memories they cannot explain. Children recounting details of events and places which they have no way of conscious knowing in their present life. Past lives? Research this. There are so many cases because this further proves that there is definitely more to us than just what's in the body. Other phenomena you can look into are thousands of cases studied worldwide of out-of-body and near-death experiences. I'm sure many of you had them. Also, anything to do with paranormal research, where even governments dedicate projects to this, hiding it, of course, from the public. So, nothing to prove that we are more than the body? Wrong. There is a lot of evidence out there. Just don't rely on official science to tell you there isn't any, because that's a lie. Okay, guys, this is quite a video, a lot to digest, but now I am excited to look at our community videos to see how people know they are more than a body. Let's kick back and enjoy. I spoke enough. So first we have Akos. I'm not sure how to read that. I think it's Akos. Akos, from Hungary.
One of my experiences was that once when I was in a meditative state, I had my ears plugged with earbuds. I was listening to some ambient music, and a feeling of heaviness came up to me, and I didn't know where it came from, but I was sure of it. When I left my room, unplugged my ears, I realized that my sister was crying, and to me, that was a very obvious clue that the boundary of my body is just not too strict in a way.
Thank you, Akos. Yes, definitely. The abilities like telepathy, which we'll go into as a separate subject, which also includes reading someone else's emotions as yours in that moment. Also, precognition. It's all types of extrasensory perceptions that are not found as the origin in their body. Okay, and now we have a few ladies. Shariva from USA, Michelle from Australia, and Ile from Canary Islands.
I know that I am more than my body and my mind. And I learned this lesson at a very young age. My mom, when she was about 6 months pregnant with me, she developed toxemia. She was throwing up, high blood pressure, starting to lose her eyesight. So they induced labor. And during my birth, she bled out. She lost about 8 pints of blood. She said she heard a rushing sound, and then she was floating above her body, and she thought, why are they working so hard to save that woman? She didn't realize it was her. And then her attention shifted to a space that was filled with light and music, and she said that she saw a circle of men. And when she met eyes with one of the men sitting in the circle, she heard in her mind a voice say, "You shouldn't be here." And at that point, she was back in her body, and I was born. And that's her story, which she shared with me, which of course is going to affect my understanding of who I am, that I'm not this vessel. I am more than this vessel.
Honestly, since I was very young, like I remember being a young girl and just knowing that I was more. I know we all have this, our higher guidance that gives us that wise, sage advice. And then there's the kind of wounded parts of us, the fragments that are the very human parts that we often act from until we integrate that higher part of us. And so I know that I'm soul, and I know that I'm human with a soul, with a divine aspect connected to source, because there's that wise part of me. And I also have gone through the journey of healing where I can feel the parts of myself that can create, that can manifest. And when I'm in a negative state, I create negative things and negative experiences to learn and to show me. The universe mirrors that back to me. And when I'm in a really high vibe state, I can create these really high vibrational opportunities. So like your consciousness has that two part. Who is the part that's watching? Who is the part that's observing? That's your higher self. And so for me, yes, I knew from a little girl, I had that knowing, but as I grew and I started working on myself and started healing, that part of me that knew became more pronounced.
Since I was a child, all of a sudden, regardless of what I was doing at that moment, I had a very, very strong feeling of my presence, of my own consciousness, that I am me, that I really am me. But it's such a strong feeling that when I was a child, I was afraid of it. I was afraid of losing myself in that feeling. It was something unknown, so I didn't know how to control it. Over the years, I have tried to reproduce it through meditation, to let myself go in this perception of myself, of my consciousness, of my true self. And when it happens to me like that by itself, it is very strong, but the moment I try to understand it on a rational level, to give a definition to what is happening, it disappears. I understand that this is because it is not something that belongs to this world, that is, to this kind of perception. And that is why, thanks to this experience, I have always been certain that there is much, much more, and that this physical body is the medium that allows us to live in this world, but that our being, our consciousness, our true self, is something much more. It cannot be described, it cannot be trapped in a physical body.
Thanks very much, ladies. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm sure many of you listening also have a lot of stories like these and your own insights. So please pay attention to them. Don't dismiss them. Listen to that inner voice. It's going to guide you to figure out yourself who you are really inside. Okay, and now we have Charlie from USA.
Why do I believe that I'm more than just physical? That's an easy one for me. I've got sick and colds and flus and fevers and everything growing up most of my life, just like everybody else here. Well, about 14 years ago, one day, for no apparent reason, and I still have no idea why I did this, I decided I'm not going to get sick anymore. I'm just not going to. It's not going to happen to me anymore. And I believed it. I truly believed it. And every time I was around somebody who had a cold or was sick or anything, that was it. I was like, well, I'm immune to that. You know how many times I've been sick since then? That many. 0. I didn't do anything physical to make that happen. Nothing. Just thinking I wasn't going to get sick ever again. We're a lot more than our body. We're consciousness. That's the real me, not this. This isn't the real me. But I can affect this with this.
Thanks very much, Charlie. This actually goes into the subject of manifestation, the power of the mind, mind over matter, consciousness creating matter, and all that. So we'll be discussing this in more details, in a lot of detail, in the future videos. Okay, so now we have Andreas from Switzerland and Romanesco from USA.
I was growing up on a farm in Switzerland. We always had cats and we always had dogs, and that were part of the family. You notice that every creature has specific aspects that are individually different from the beginning of their lives. That was to me a big indicator that there has to be more than we are just a piece of flesh. If there wouldn't be no soul, or how you want to call it, then every living creature from the birth would be exactly the same. But growing up on a farm, I noticed it isn't that way.
Growing up, I always wanted to connect with the spiritual realm. I read the fantasy books. I prayed to God, God, help me meet the dragons, help me leave my body. And it never, ever worked. So I just went the opposite way and just did everything I could to heal and fix myself with my body. So diet, nutrition, and all of these things. And for a while they worked. After a while, though, those things stopped working. About 5 years ago, I heavily began exploring my spirituality in a different way. I moved to a very clean place with clean air and clean water. I began studying the ways of indigenous people and learning how they connected with their spirit outside of their body. And while they all worked some way and definitely helped, while they were the kindergarten, the early classes to get me there, there is nothing which catapulted me forward, in more of a fun way, than when I began learning about astral projection and out-of-body experiences. I started reading the different out-of-body experiences books by Robert Monroe, and I instantly knew this was the truth. And within 2 weeks, I began practicing really hardcore every day, and after 2 weeks, I had an experience. But this is how I finally knew that I was definitely not just my body.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. Andreas, yes, that's what I was talking about exactly when I was saying that there are two children sometimes raised in exactly the same way, same environment, but right away they are displaying different characteristics and talents and interests. So yeah, it definitely applies to animals because, by the way, good news for many of you, the animals also are people. They are like us, they have souls and consciousness. And what Romanesco said also very, very, very interesting and very important for you to look into astral projection. So it goes into the out-of-body experiences I was talking about. There are a lot of astral projection techniques you can study and you can start to experience all this for yourself.
With the experience, I understood that we are more than a body. And I understood that clearly in 1984 when I had a very deep meditation. From then on, I had experiences with my hands, with healing. I began to have experiences with crystals, with quartz, and I began to see myself in other places outside the body. Having bilocations while meditating in one place, and my other body, the soul, moving at the same time to another place from where I was meditating. This phenomenon has happened to me at least 2 or 3 times, meditating with a group of people, sometimes alone, and then shifting to another place. What does this mean?
Thank you a lot, everybody who participated. Thank you, everyone, and let's close the class. In the end, what we have tried to do here today was to describe the undescribable, frame what's unframeable, impossibility. So you will probably still have different opinions, trying to dissect and define that beyond physical spark in many ways. But what is really important in the end is that it is there, and it is who you are. And if you are still skeptical, just open your mind to the possibility and begin to explore your inner world. Feel yourself inside. That's the key in the end, for you to have experiences yourself. You are not as alone as you think. And 2020 survey by the Pew Research Center found that 77% of Americans believe in an afterlife, and 63% of Europeans believe in some sort of existence beyond the physical. So buckle up well, as this is just the beginning of your journey. And buckled up you'd better be, as in the next class we are actually, for the first time, going to venture into space. I think it's time. We talked about the human body and soul, but are those bodies and souls only present on this one planet? Are we alone in the universe? I know some of your jaws will drop with this one. I can't wait. See you all there, and thank you.
The moment you discover that you are not limited, your consciousness will rise, and you will be liberated from the illusion of the matrix. You will have all your abilities. You will realize everything that goes on, and therefore, the matrix will end.
Official terrestrial science cannot be relied on for questions on transcendental matters, as it is too materialistic in its approach and controlled. If we limit our understanding of reality only to what is materially observable, we will limit our individual and collective potential. Beyond your body, you are the sole consciousness, a fractal of Source, and be in totality of Source itself. Soul can be interpreted as a group of concepts and ideas to which a larger consciousness, Source itself, which you also are, holds attachments. Many of those bundles of attachments and perceptions, conscious and unconscious, remain with you after death and are carried over to next experiences. The body acts as a filter for the soul's perception to limit your experience only to what is observable by it, and to have experience in the material world. There's a lot of evidence out there that proves we are more than our body, such as out-of-body and near-death experiences, and countless other phenomena. Begin to explore your inner world and discover your own experiences with your body and consciousness.